Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the Gameweek 18 edition of the FPL Scope podcast. With me today, I have, as always, my co-host Kevin, and he's back in Sweden celebrating Christmas with his family. He's wearing his Everton Christmas jersey, or Christmas sweater, I should say. We just saw Everton go out in the League Cup in the quarterfinals from a penalty shootout, so not the best times for Kevin, but regardless of that, how are things in Sweden? How are you celebrating Christmas? And Merry Christmas in general to both you and anyone watching in particular.
Yeah, it's been a tumultuous time here in Sweden. Obviously, had some personal issues in terms of a death in the family.
Yeah,
Um, you know, uh, Everton going out of the cup. Really frustrating things happening in terms of personal life stuff. But very happy to be home in Sweden. Very happy to see my friends. Very happy to see my family. Lots of exciting things to come. So I try to keep a positive mindset with everything, but obviously with any sort of death, it affects me. If it affects me very negatively, and as you know, as expected. But I'm gonna try and keep a brave face and just yeah. I think that's what my relative would have wanted. Not going to go too much deeper into that, but yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to.
yeah. Sadly, some things like that happen sometimes, and just have to get past it and remember the good times, I guess. But at least you're there in Sweden to be there as well. I'm glad you got to at least do that before everything happened and stuff. But we're here though to talk about Fantasy Premier League, as harsh as that might sound. But at the same time, it's always nice to have something to think about other than the tragedies that happen and stuff. So let's get into it really with FPL. There's one thing that I want to talk to you about that's just up front, and that is Newcastle in general. We also saw them go out in the cup, losing in the penalty shootout against Chelsea after Trippier once again messing up. Like, he had one of the worst months so far. Like I can remember from football, or like so many mistakes, and he's kind of being like I don't know, not like revealed as a fraud, but like defensively, he's never been like that guy. Like, I think he has escaped a lot of the criticism that Trent Alexander-Arnold has had for such a long time defensively. But of course, he's a good FPL pick, so we're going to talk a lot about Trippier in this podcast, I think, because he is definitely in my transfer plans as well, and you already have him in your team as well, and I don't suspect that you'll switch him out either. But yeah, there's a lot of changes with Newcastle. Gordon had to be subbed off with an injury in the match against Chelsea. Fabian Schär was out last game with an injury as well. Isak is injured. Some people have all three: Fabian Schär, Isak, and Gordon. If you all have all three and you have your wildcard left, you should definitely use your wildcard, and we'll talk more about the wildcard potential later in this podcast as well. But yeah, what do you make of Newcastle in general and their like sort of tumultuous December month, where they have really high highs where they look really, really good, and then they have really low lows where they just fumble it and stuff. So what do you think of Newcastle in general, both in terms of the season and also in terms of FPL picks? Are there any interesting FPL picks from Newcastle? Any picks that you are kind of soured on? What do you think about Newcastle in general?
I mean, I'm obviously soured on Isak because the fact that he was been playing through injury,
Yeah,
which sounds like Isak in a nutshell, that's obviously pissed me off. Callum Wilson seems to be back, so an obvious pick there is Callum Wilson. Gordon, it's hard to say whether he's injured or not because he constantly plays through injury and
yeah,
constantly keeps playing even though he shouldn't and all this type of stuff. So it's going to be hard to say. Trippier, he's been fucking, he's been dog shit for a while.
yeah,
I still think he can bounce back, and I still think he's more than capable of getting these like 12-point games, especially after back to back sort of disaster classes and stuff. So for me, I think, I think if you're a basically a Trippier guy, or you have him in your team, hold. It's two easy games. Then let's think about swapping him out and fixing other things. I think Newcastle in general will need to spend in January because yes, Lewis Miley scored and stuff like that, but you can't sort of expect a 17, 18-year-old to be doing the business straight away. And they have so many injuries and they're getting more injuries. I mean, with the latest on Isak and Gordon. So I think the best thing for them would be, try and survive these next couple of game weeks and then in January finish your business as soon as possible. Do not dilly dally. Do not wait until deadline day. Just get your business done straight away because
Yeah.
you need it. You're very lucky that I think it's a blessing in disguise for Newcastle that they didn't go through in the Champions League and Europa League because I think
Yeah.
both of those things are unwarranted distractions. Yes, they showed the business against PSG. Very cool match. That's going to be something Newcastle fans will cherish for a while. I mean, it was against Kylian Mbappe and Ousmane Dembele and all this type of stuff. But like at the end of the day, they don't have the squad or the team to sort of deal with that. And they got found out pretty quickly. Some would say it's due to the injuries. I don't think so. I think it's just inexperience. And of course, they have to be there to get there. But to get there again, they have to do well in the league. So
Yeah.
prioritize, 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 prioritize. And I think that's what Newcastle will have to do. They'll have to go into January, get some decent talents. They have the money. They have good scouts because they have been signing some great players left and right. So I'd say that's what Newcastle should do.
Yeah. They also, obviously went out of the League Cup, and that actually has some ramifications for FPL as well in terms of Gameweek 26, which is when the League Cup final is. So if Newcastle had reached the final, they would blank in Gameweek 26, which is when they face Arsenal. So that would have made a whole host of other problems in FPL. So Newcastle going out might actually benefit us, or at least make it more easy for us to navigate FPL, because it's not going to be a blank between Newcastle and Arsenal anymore, because Arsenal are out, Newcastle are out. There's no chance of that game being postponed now. The other interesting parts there is Liverpool as well, who might be getting Salah back from African Cup of Nations around that time, but then they might have that game postponed because they are in the final. If they reach the final, they have to beat West Ham first. We're obviously recording this before West Ham hopefully beat Liverpool, in my view, and in your view as well, I think. But yeah, it has some ramifications as well. But when it comes to Newcastle as well, there is one guy that I'm kind of surprised they haven't mentioned yet. He's pictured there on the screen.
Oh, Bernardo, of course.
You like to affectionately call him Bernardo, even though I made a point, I think, last time around or not last time around, but in my last video, I think, it should actually be Bernal or what's the other, Adriano? Like, he's not small, Bernardo, he's tall. So it should be Bernal, not Bernardo, right?
Yeah, but it's like, it should be actually,
Little Bern.
it's because it works with his name. And it ends with an N, so I was just like Bernardo. It couldn't be Bermino because that's like Firmino. It's Bernardo, and it's also a play on the name. I think that's why it makes it even funnier.
Bernal.
The fact that he is tall. No, the fact that he's tall. The fact that he's tall, and now I'm calling him Little Bern is quite funny. Because that's what.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Bernardo it is. That's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's back, and that actually creates an interesting conundrum as well with him being back, most likely at left back, meaning Livramento could play right back as well. So do you think there's a chance Trippier gets dropped after his like kind of horrific month now in December, or do you think he's just undroppable for Newcastle?
I think it sort of depends on how Eddie Howe views it. I think like that's the other thing about Trippier as well that to his credit. The one thing that I could never ever slate Jamie Carragher about was the fact that he was a workhorse, right?
Yeah.
He played every minute, every day, every second, and could handle it. Trips is not at the prime of his career. He's quite honestly in his twilight years in that regard. So he hasn't. I think personally, it's due to him being burned out. Pun intended, I guess. So I think that's the main reason that I think there's been a lapse of judgment in terms of his defending and all this type of stuff. I think a lot of it's due to the fact that they have so many injuries that they can't afford to rest him. Does that mean that he might get rested a little bit going forward? Yes, but I think they will wait until it's like an absolute necessity to do so. I still think he is hilariously one of their marquee signings when they signed him from Atletico Madrid. So I think he still has a lot of supporters and a lot of love. But Newcastle fans aren't happy. I mean, I know several, and they all have basically said what I've said for a while, that he's just burned out and shouldn't be playing anymore.
Yeah.
But does that mean Lewis Hall and Livermore and hey, Emil Kraft should be sacrificed? I think not. I think not, good sir.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll talk a lot more about Newcastle as well because they are kind of at the forefront in terms of the transfer dealings we're going to do with our teams as well. Obviously, we're going to talk about your team. We're going to talk about Kimo's team, our third founding member of the FPL scope, and we're also going to talk about the manager of the week. And everyone has Newcastle players, it seems. It's just me who only has Dubravka, who doesn't really have to worry about them that much. But I'm also thinking about bringing in Newcastle players as well because there are some players that are not that interesting anymore that we want to sell from Newcastle, and there are some players that are quite interesting now for at least the next 2 game weeks, and especially for me with a wildcard in Game Week 20, who can just have them for those 2 game weeks and then ship them out on the wildcard in Game Week 20. But yeah, I think Newcastle are kind of interesting, so I just thought it was nice to start with that for the podcast. But let's move on to your score for Game Week 17, and it is kind of a weird scoring week so far still because we still haven't received confirmation on what's going to happen with the Bournemouth-Luton game. Obviously, the main priority there was the fact that Tom Lockyer is fine and healthy. It seems like I don't really know the latest updates, but it seems like he's stable and everything is fine there. So we have that out of the way, and we can talk about the ramifications of FPL as well. After that, there's a bit of a controversy on FPL Twitter or FPL X about that as well, how early you can talk about FPL compared to. But either way, he's fine at least, so we don't have to worry about that. We do have to still think about what's going to happen with the Bournemouth-Luton game. I think we know kind of for sure that it's going to be replayed at some point. They're not going to end it 1-1 and that's going to be that. I think it's going to be replayed. So we're going to have a double game week coming up with Bournemouth and Luton as well, which is interesting, I think. But also there is going to be a decision made whether they want to keep the points for Solanke, given the bonus points as well, because he got a goal and was on his way to 9 points before the match stopped and was postponed. But what do you think personally that they should do about the game and the points? Do you think they should void the points and have the auto subs in for the players that played from Bournemouth and stuff, or do you think they should just get the points as they had after 60 minutes of that game?
I still think it's really stupid that they didn't. Like, I know that there was some official ruling, which is that if it's neither team's fault for this sort of abandonment of the game,
Yeah.
that you replay it from zero. But every other single league just plays it from the minute it got abandoned, and that's
Yeah.
it. So personally, I think the points should stand and that they should just play it from that point. But if everything's going to get zeroed, then I'm sorry, Solanke owners, then everything should get zeroed.
Yeah.
As simple as. Why the hell would you keep goals of something that got zeroed? That just seems like the dumbest thing in the world. Just zero it. Unlucky, and if they have to do it that you get a sub in or something like that, then do that. If they understand how to calculate that, if they can't calculate it and just give everyone 0 points, then give everyone 0 points. It's unfair, it's unlucky, but it is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You can't get phantom goals in that regards either.
Yeah, I get it. And so that's likely what's going to happen as well, I think. Especially seeing as, we basically got to confirm that they're going to start the match from zero and play it onwards. Just start from scratch, basically. So that might happen. And we still don't know. Maybe this has been settled before the podcast comes out tomorrow morning. We're recording this on Tuesday night. We'll see what happens there. But let's go on to your team. Your team hasn't been affected by that match because you don't have any Bournemouth or Luton players at all. It's only affected by the fact that they still haven't really made the auto subs by now. So as you can see, you still have Areola and Nkunku in your starting lineup, and they didn't play. So obviously you're going to get Flecken and Gordon in for those guys. Happy days for you with Gordon 6 points at least. But you don't have a sub to go in for Isak because Trippier was suspended and Tavares has just not played for forever, basically. In general, what do you think about your game week? You did sort of a risky pick, I guess, sort of a fun pick with Nkunku, who's back in the squad, played against Sheffield United. If he got minutes in that game, he would have been a great pick, but for some reason Pochettino didn't play him at all. Didn't even give him a cameo. What do you think of your transfers? Did you have higher hopes for Son as well?
I mean, obviously, I wanted to do Watkins for Haaland as I wanted to. However, I thought Isak would at least play
Yeah.
and therefore and Isak had a really good game. And I thought Darwin and Liverpool were going to destroy Man United, and it
Yeah.
ended up being one of the most boring games I've ever seen in my life. So, um, yeah, disappointed to say the least. I mean, obviously, I went for a more fun pick. I was obviously Watkins was the move, and I could have even gone for Jesus, who I was also
Yeah.
thinking about.
Yeah.
Um, who scored? Did
Yeah.
he?
He scored.
Yeah.
Scored a header, back post header.
So I could have had two players who scored, and obviously went for the more fun pick in a game where Chelsea completely dominated as well. And
Yeah.
had he cameoed, he 100% would have gone a goal or assist. It just
Yeah.
felt like a game where Nicholas Jackson couldn't score for shit. And
Yeah. As always.
yeah, yeah.
Pretty much.
So frustrating. However, I can't really complain. I don't really care because I think for me, it's more about getting to the next year and getting to the wild card section because I'm A, desperate for it. B, I think it'll just be more fun once more transfers are made in the Prem and some of this bullshit sort of template crap goes away because so many players will be heading off to the Asian Games, the AFCON, and all this type of stuff, which will
Yeah.
make captaincy choices a little bit more fun. It'll also mean that players like Saka actually matter even more because like right now I'm not at all I could not care less about him currently because he's not living up to the sort of hype that I know that he's capable of.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at this point like wondering whether I should just bring in Richarlison. Man, that guy's scoring more than Saka and he's only scored in 2 games. Like what the fuck? So in that regards, I am very much looking forward to the January transfer window because I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what a lot of clubs need to do. Spurs is one of those clubs that need to sign more players. Arsenal, I don't know if they need to, but probably should.
Ivan Toney potentially.
Newcastle, yeah, Newcastle, same thing. I think they need to sign some players. Liverpool are probably going to sign players, even though they don't need it. They'll be like, "Oh, we have bought Timo Werner for no reason." So it'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of teams have a lot of sort of deficiencies in certain positions and stuff, including Everton. So I'll be very interested to see what we all end up doing.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be some fun weeks, I think. Now Haaland as well is a bit of a doubt going forward as well. He's not playing so far in the FIFA Club World Cup, and it seems like there are some rumors that he's not going to partake in the tournament at all now, apparently. And De Bruyne is apparently back in training, and Haaland is not. So that's going to be interesting as well. But yeah, I think Haaland for now, selling him was definitely the right decision because it seems like Gameweek 19 against Everton, which is good for you guys. It seems like that is a doubt for him, and potentially even Gameweek 20, which is like the big week where he plays Sheffield United at home. If he doesn't play that game week, that's going to be really interesting in terms of captaincy and stuff as well. That's obviously the final game week for both Salah and Son before they leave for AFCON and Asian Cup as well. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, in general, your team, medium-ish game week, probably would have wished for better results when it comes to the transfers. Son didn't really have the best game, but I know he can turn it up as well. He has a couple more weeks as well to prove his worth for you. And I don't really begrudge that transfer either. I think Son was sort of like a no-brainer to get in. Even for -4, I think he makes sense to bring in. And Kunku, like I said, it's more like a fun pick, a fun differential, and it might pay out in the next few weeks. Obviously, Watkins is probably the move you should have gone with because he's the best captaincy option in Game Week 18, but there's still time to fix that as well, as we'll get to with your transfer plans. What's also an interesting theme about this game week in particular was all the clean sheets and defensive points. Because, yeah, Chimikas, 7 points, clean sheet against Man United. Gabriel, clean sheets against, who did they play again? Brighton, which is kind of surprising. Yeah. I expected him to concede against Brighton. I expected Brighton to be more offensively minded in that game, but Arsenal just completely dominated Brighton most of that game. And then Pedro Porro with 8 points as well. Huge player to have. You already have him and Trippier, who are two players who are really some of the more like popular defenders currently to bring in. So you have an advantage there, and I think Nkunku is going to come good eventually as well. It's just your strikers leave a lot to be desired with Darwin lately. Most of us kind of want to get rid of him, and Isak just being injured for no reason really, just having a groin issue, and he really could have exploded the last few weeks, but he's been a major letdown as well. It's been a while since we did a podcast, obviously, and one of the weeks that we didn't do, you did the double move of Darwin and Isak in, and that has been like just major letdown to you. And I thought both of those guys were fantastic picks at that time as well. I had them both in my weekly wildcard draft for that week, and I thought that was a decent decision from you to get both of them in. Like I thought it was a bit risky. I said that on the podcast before, that it was a bit risky selling Watkins and Alvarez that week, just because it's hard to predict. But I really like the look of both Darwin and Isak, and they've just been huge disappointments in FPL in general. But yeah, either way, got to move on to the next 2 game weeks, and we also got to move on to Kimo's score for game week 17. He had a better game week with 2 really good transfers as well, with Watkins and Porro, the template sort of transfers. That paid out this week. Watkins with 9 points, Pedro Porro with 8 points. They really helped him. He also got a clean sheet from Newcastle for West Ham, which is kind of interesting. Obviously, the one game week where West Ham keep a clean sheet, Ariola is not in goal to get the clean sheet. So neither you or Kimo got the clean sheet from him. But Kimo's going to get in Turner. You're going to get in Flecken with 2 points, both of you guys. But yeah, other than that, Palmer with 14 points. We didn't mention that in your team either, but fantastic from him. He's been just an amazing player this season and a really good FPL pick in general. I'm going to talk more about him in the weekly wildcard draft segment that we're going to have. Kimo's team, it looks pretty good. He has quite a lot of points so far this season, slightly less than me, but he's in a pretty good position. When you look at his team, like, are there any major downsides you see from this team, or is it like pretty decent to go forward, do you think?
I think it's perfectly fine. It's just a shame that Isak didn't work out.
Yeah.
It just becomes interesting who he wants to replace Isak with.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it's pretty...
He has a lot of money in the bank now with Haaland out, obviously.
I think if we wait until the weekly... I mean, you know what? Let me put it this way. If I were to suggest anyone right now from the players that I've liked, obviously my guy Nkunku, I still think Kimo's the sort of player to make a move like Nkunku, especially considering their next 4 is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of whether he'll get the minutes, and I think he will, because I think it's very indicative of him in a big. I mean, some would argue that the EFL Cup isn't big, but it's still a trophy at the end of the day. And for a club like Chelsea, who only care about that shit, I think he's a really good pick. I also obviously like the looks of Jesus, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
I also think that Callum Wilson, just like for like swap for the 2 super easy games, is not the worst pick in the world.
It depends how long Isak is out for as well, because Eddie Howe has famously just been really obtuse when it comes to like player updates. I remember when Botman first got his injury, which has kept him out for like 2 or 3 months at this point. At first, when he got the injury, they were just like, oh, he might make it back, maybe, we'll see, maybe, we don't really know. And it might be the same case with Isak, and especially for a 2-week punt, as we saw with Newcastle's fixtures, or as we'll see with Newcastle's fixtures. The next 2 are really good, and then after that they have 3 really tough fixtures. So just for like a short punt, I think Wilson is a fantastic pick because he's the penalty taker. We know he always performs when he plays. And even if Isak is back, I think they could potentially do what they did last year, where Isak plays on the left and Wilson plays up front, because Gordon has just played every single game currently, and he's now injured as well. So I think Wilson is a really good pick as well. And I really like Jesus. And obviously Solanke is the one we haven't mentioned as well. He's going to get a double game week at some point. We don't really know when that is either. Which makes it a bit more difficult. So yeah, I think there are a lot of decent striker options for you if you want to sell Isak. So we're going to get to that eventually in this podcast as well. Let's move on to the manager of the week. And as always, I can remind you that you can be the manager of the week as well. You guys watching, if you want to join the FPL Scope Mini League, which has a league code of V9JT0D. And if you join the league and you have the highest score of one particular game week, we will feature you on the podcast or in one of my videos if you don't do the podcast that week. And this week it is Dom Redski. I don't really know if that's the real name of this person or it looks a bit made up, but maybe it's like a Polish name. I don't know. All the Z's and Y's and whatever. But either way, 89 points with an asterisk, of course, because we have the Solanke points. Currently, Solanke is on 6 points, but I think most people assume he'll either get 9 points with the bonus added if they add the points, or he'll get 0 points if they null it out, like you said. But even if they zero it out, he'll get Guehi off the bench because he already has Gordon off the bench for Isak. So Guehi off the bench would give him 84 points, which is still the most in the Miniscope, the FPL Scope Mini League this week. So this team double up with Chimikas and turn to Alexander-Arnold. I think that's really interesting, especially for game week 19 when they play Burnley. Salah, as we probably have to mention as well, really disappointing captaincy from him again. I think Salah has been sort of disappointing lately in general with his points. But yeah, just a disappointing week from him in general. And Liverpool as well. Like, drawing against Man United is just pretty terrible. But yeah, the same hitters as with every other successful team. Palmer, Watkins, Solanke in the team if he gets the points, of course. Gordon off the bench for Isak. And then the main man himself, who we are both huge fans of. And I'm kind of annoyed that we didn't jump on him earlier in the season when he was sort of like it was pretty nailed that he was going to play going forward. Mohamed Kudus, Kudus, I should say, the star boy from Ghana. 2 fantastic goals for West Ham against Wolverhampton. I could have brought him in both in Game Week 13 when I brought in Buemo and in Game Week 16 when I brought in Hwang Hee-chan, but yeah, I just stayed away from him. I haven't had a West Ham player this whole season, which is kind of crazy, as I'm a West Ham fan, but yeah, Kudus in general, obviously he's leaving for the African Cup of Nations in Game Week 21, but when he comes back from that, do you think he'll be in your team at some point? Because we're both massive fans of his. We made an article on the Videoscope, our website, a couple of years ago. We talked about like the next big things in football, and we mentioned Kudus as like one of the bigger, best talents coming up. So do you think Kudus is going to be in your team at some point, or do you think like his moment has passed sort of, and he's going to be more rotation prone when Antonio and Bowen are both fully fit eventually?
Oh, yeah. Anyways,
don't start it.
No, but Richarlison scored more goals. But Man United, Arsenal, Brighton, Sheffield, and he's going to be gone from 21 or
21 until at the most 25 if they win the whole or reach the final, I think.
Yeah, but then it's a good run of fixtures. I'd say I definitely consider Kudus because I think someone like Gordon is good because he gets you a goal and assist. But the thing about someone like Kudus is he can at any given time explode, and I know he's someone who's more than capable of taking that next step and becoming some of these like world beater sort of players.
Yeah.
So I am 100% interested in Kudus. My only issue had ever been was Moise's racism because he just wouldn't start him.
Yeah,
like if you sign buying someone like Kudus, you have to start him every game. I don't understand why there was a period where he didn't start. It's the only reason he wasn't in my team. And I'll be honest, I guess I haven't been paying attention to the fact that he's been starting quite regularly now.
Yeah.
Because if I had noticed that, 100% would have taken a punt on him because I really love Kudus. I think he's a left-footed magician, mate. So, yeah, I would 100% advise people to go for Kudus. He's a good stopgap to Jared Bowen, who's like 1.5 more expensive.
Yeah, something like that. I think it's about $1 million more expensive. I think Bowen now.
I think. Yeah, I mean, of course, Bowen is that guy, but I think Kudus is more of a fun pick and saves you a bit of cashish. So
yeah,
I would 100% recommend him.
Yeah, we're kind of 5 weeks too late though with that because he's going to AFCON obviously. So I think Bowen is going to be a fantastic pick from Game Week 21 onwards. They actually have really good fixtures. Game Week 21, Sheffield United away. Game Week 22, Bournemouth at home. 23, Man United away, which isn't the best, and Arsenal at home after that. But yeah, they have some good fixtures right at the start of AFCON at least. So I think Bowen is going to be an interesting pick going forward as well, as we'll see with the weekly wildcard drafts, which is a bit of a spoiler. But yeah, really like Kudus. Really wish I had jumped on him earlier as well. But yeah, I always like a bit skeptical to going with West Ham players myself because usually I've been burnt with that, playing with my heart rather than playing with my mind, I guess. But yeah, Kudus, fantastic to see him score the goals. He's a really, really good player in general, and really happy to have him at West Ham, along with Lucas Paqueta as well, who had a hat-trick of assists and just played amazingly once again. City have really missed a trick this summer. First by not signing Declan Rice and letting him go to Arsenal, and then trying to go for Paqueta and not manage to get him over the line and get Matheus Nunes instead, which has not been a huge success either. So, yeah, he's definitely going to be on the block for City next summer, I think. But yeah, that is the manager of the week for this week. We're obviously going to end the podcast talking about the future plans for this manager as well going forward. I think it's a pretty solid team, but I think there are some interesting things you can do as well with this team. But yeah, let's move on to the predictions that we've had for the last game week, for game week 17. We can go through them pretty quickly, and yeah, the most interesting thing, or the most surprising result, I think, for all of us is the fact that, well, apart from maybe Liverpool, Man United, where we both had like 4-0 Liverpool, I said, and 4-1 Liverpool, you said, ended up being 0-0. Kind of disappointing there, but obviously Man City against Crystal Palace, a draw for Man City, and that is like their fifth game out of the last 6 where they haven't won. I think they just have like a lot of draws and losses and stuff. They've sort of been struggling a bit lately. Obviously now Haaland is out, on top of De Bruyne being out since game week 1 as well. Alvarez has sort of been it's kind of like a shell of himself. I think he's just played way too much football the last year to just be effective at this point. So what do you make of City and their title chances in general now that they've been struggling lately? Like, do you still hold them as title favorites, or do you think? What do you think about them? Will everything solve itself when De Bruyne is back, or is there deeper lying issues with City? Any idea, Kevin? What's that? De Bruyne.
Listen, mate, Kevin De Bruyne is a generational talent, one of the best players in the Prem, one of the best players in the world. The minute he's back, everything will start clicking for them.
Yep.
He's clearly been what they've been missing in terms of creativity. I think Haaland's been missing that. Like, of course, Haaland's also been missing chances left and right. But
I was about to say.
that being said, it's that extra bit of levity that the team needs, and I think the minute KDB's back, they're going to go into that January to June form that they normally do. So I think a lot of teams are going to be scared. I think Pep is also going to pull some bullshit and be like, listen, if you don't buy me Paulo Dybala, I'm leaving, sort of thing. Like, Pep knows how to get the most out of the City board, so I reckon if there's some we want Leroy Sané back, they'll get him, sort of thing. So I think City are going to spend big in the January transfer window. I think De Bruyne being back and stays healthy is going to be massive for them, and I think things are actually going to turn around for them. I am not going to be as harsh as Jose Mourinho in the podcast recently, where he went, what was it, City 51%, Liverpool 59 or 49%, Arsenal nah.
Yeah,
he hates Arsenal.
Yeah, I think he always has a grudge there. I think he's wide off the mark. I have Arsenal. I've had Arsenal as my pick to win the title ever since they signed Declan Rice, obviously.
I've said it for a while that I think Liverpool are dark horses for the dub, but I think AFCON might fuck them.
Yeah, that's gonna mess them up.
I think it's gonna mess them up because it's a few players that they could miss out on, and
Salah, obviously, the big one.
Yeah, but it's just a question of who's got what it takes to win the big matches as well. Arsenal have sort of been the ones to impress, but then again, if they lose to Liverpool at Anfield, which is not the worst result in the world, it could get pretty scary out there. So I still think. Of course, it's advantage Arsenal considering the fact that City are so many points behind. But I know Pep is a 0 winner. He's the GOAT. Kevin De Bruyne, honestly, one of my favorite players of maybe even fucking all time. Like, I think he's just that fucking special. Like, I think De Bruyne is wildly, like, overhated on because of and fair criticism, the fact that he doesn't show up in the finals and stuff like that. He always just goes off injured, motherfucker. But
semifinal against Real Madrid was huge, though.
Yeah, and I think, and again, he's just huge. Yep, Holland is Mr. Final fucking avoider.
Yeah.
I'd rather have I'd rather have Fernando Torres over Holland in a final. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, but yeah, I think De Bruyne is fantastic. I think most people think he's fantastic as well. So there's a lot of talk. We're going slightly off topic here, but I think it's just fun to talk about De Bruyne. He's back in training as well, so he's going to be interesting in FPL. But do you have him? Obviously, we all know Xavi is the best midfielder of all time, but where do you have De Bruyne on that list behind Xavi? Like,
Probably top five.
yeah, name some
Yeah.
names. Do you have him higher than all the three Musketeers, Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, all three.
Probably over. Probably
Even
over.
over Scholes, the best out of the three.
Probably. That's a diff. No, that's tough. I don't think KDB is better than all three. Maybe. I don't know. It's tough because KDB is sort of like like a he's sort of like a amalgamation of all of them. He's got the shooting of fucking Lamps, got the passing of goals, got the sort of all round game of fucking Steven Gerrard. So I think hands on my fucking thing, man. Like I think
That's another thing.
yeah,
What?
this thing.
Okay.
I'm tired. I
The
don't know what I
microphone.
said. Yes. Hands on the sausage, the gabagool. I, I think Kevin De Bruyne is one of the best midfielders to ever play the game of
Yeah. Yeah.
football. I genuinely think so. It's hard to list because his career is not even over yet. There's still lots that he could do and stuff like that. But to be fair to him, only one Champions League title. Fucking loser. Xavi has like eight. Relax. So,
Fair
which
enough.
is, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Champions League titles is what we want to use as Barca fans, but
Nope.
even though they have a lot, but there's a
Yeah.
certain other club we don't like that
We
have
have two
more.
troubles. We have two troubles.
It's true.
Who else got two
True.
troubles?
But with that aside,
Bayern
that is
Munich.
a bit off topic, but it's fun to go off topic
Yes.
a little bit. I'm also looking at this
Kevin De
now.
Bruyne's sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of
But
course. I'm also looking at this and I'm just like, why did I have 1-1 between Newcastle and Fulham? I bought too much into the Fulham hype and I just
yeah, what
bought
the
too
fuck is
much
wrong with you?
into Newcastle being bad. But at the same time, it's also affected by Jimenez just being an idiot and just like hip checking with the body into the head of the opposing player. He did the Princess Peach smash move,
Side B.
side B
Yeah.
in Smash, which is my favorite move with the Princess Peach in Smash. But that's also another off-topic thing. But either way, let's go past that game as well. Arsenal, Brighton. We're going to talk more about Arsenal with the Liverpool thing, but I just thought it was interesting how dominant they looked in general. I think against Brighton, both offensively and defensively. But yeah, obviously the other huge game was Liverpool Man United. We don't really have to talk too much about that game either because yeah, it was really boring in terms of Liverpool just had the upper hand but couldn't really create many like huge chances. I guess they had way more XG. But it ended 0-0, which is kind of interesting. So we talked about City and their chances, but Liverpool, you said, as a dark horse, but they've looked like not the best lately, I think. Like they've like barely eked out some wins here and there, and that's a huge sign of a championship level team, but they haven't looked the best, and now it's Salah leaving. I think they might struggle personally, but how do you see Liverpool going forward as well? And in the absence of Salah, are there any other FPL assets that you would potentially look at?
Yeah, I mean, if Jota could stay healthy, I would have said him. I think Luis Diaz is going to be an interesting one for sure because I think he's going to start exploding again. I think psychologically it must have taken a lot out of him with his whole dad and mom being kidnapped and stuff like
Yeah,
that. It would have, of course, take him some time to get back into speed, and he has scored here and there ever since. And
yeah,
I think he's gonna explode. I think Cody Gakpo is still, or Hakpo is still pretty good. I think
uh,
he's someone who's more deserving of play as well, and he will get more playing time once Salah's out, I reckon.
yeah.
Soboslai, of course, but Soboslai is one of
Soboslai
those
is
dickheads
interesting.
who takes like 50 long shots and one goes in, and then it's like, oh, what a guy. So I don't know. I think Soboslai is just in a bit of down form. Like he said, I think Liverpool in general, yes, have been super lucky with a lot of the wins and stuff, but it takes a team to win, not just one player.
Yeah.
So it's uh it's it's interesting. It's an interesting time to be a Liverpool fan
Yeah.
for sure.
Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold is another hot button topic in terms of FPL. A lot of people are looking to bring him in, especially now that we'll have more cash on hand with first Haaland being injured and then Salah and Son leaving for AFCON and an Asian Cup. Trent, is he someone that is in your plans
Yeah.
potentially? Yeah.
Yeah, Trent does this every year where he gets a purple patch and looks like the fucking biscuits and gravy, but it's a complete waste of time sometimes because God, what was it? Or was it this season or last season? I'm like, he is essential. He's essential. And then he literally wasn't essential within like 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
it's he's a form player.
Yeah.
They're in good form. He's winning most games. He's keeping clean sheets. Yes, he's expensive. And what the fuck? He's 8 million. So that's a lot for
Yeah.
a fucking right back who is completely inconsistent. But he's growing in confidence. He's taking the free kicks. He's spamming the crosses. They'll eventually start going in and get some form going. So yeah, I think Trent's a very good pick.
Yep. Just to wrap up this part of the podcast, this week you had 6 correct results. I had 5. So once again, you sort of gain an advantage. In total, this season you have 92 correct results, and I have 75, which is kind of bad for me. And seeing the Newcastle Fulham pick, I can sort of see why. Because yeah, I'm too, as with the free hit teams that I try to make, I'm too like focused in the moment rather than like what's happened the last few weeks or like over a longer period of time, I guess. But yeah, both had also 2 correct scorelines. We both predicted Chelsea to beat Sheffield United 2-0, which is a standard Sheffield United loss for us in the predictions usually. I had the correct result for Everton against Burnley. Happy about that, 2-0. You didn't have faith in Everton keeping clean sheets, but they did for the 4th time in a row, which is huge. Everton as well, like hats off to Everton in general after the point deduction, how they've risen up from that, notwithstanding the loss now in the Carabao Cup. But yeah, in the league, really impressive. And Sean Dyche, a man that you wanted to be fired for like a month or 2 ago, it's really turned it around for Everton. I think it's interesting to see them. But yeah, the other correct results or correct scoreline you had was Aston Villa against Brentford, 2-1 you had. I had 2-0 for Aston Villa. Sadly I say as someone without Aston Villa defensive asset, but they conceded against Brentford. And that ended up being 2-1. So correct scoreline for you there. Let's move on to the next week's predictions, and yeah, we can sort of go through them here and talk about the games where we have disagreements. And we have that in the first game between Crystal Palace and Brighton, which is a derby for some reason. I have never really understood why, because Brighton is quite far away from Crystal Palace. But yeah, I am no football scholar, so maybe you can enlighten me. But I have 1-1 in this because I think it's just going to be one of those derby games. I think also Crystal Palace now with Eberechi Eze coming on last game, finally Eze and Olise will be on the pitch at the same time. I think that's going to be a huge boost for Crystal Palace. But I still think Brighton are a better team, so I think it's going to be 1-1. You went with a 3-1 Brighton win, which is kind of surprising to me, seeing as how Brighton haven't been like super impressive lately. But what makes you feel like Brighton are the best team in this fixture? On Thursday, we should also mention that it's a Thursday deadline, so anyone that is not aware of that, you have to be early and make sure that you have your transfers ready for Thursday, because it's going to be a really early deadline. But yeah, what do you make of Brighton Palace, and why do you have Brighton winning that game?
I just think there's a lot of the reason why, if I remember correctly, the reason why it's a derby is because they had a bunch of fierce matches in like division bullshit, like when they were both in like the lower divisions. They had like 4 consecutive games where it was just complete chaos, and that's why it became sort of a derby. So that's why it's a derby, but who gives a shit about something that happened I don't know how many years ago? It's fucking Prowess and Brighton. No one gives a shit about either team. So fuck both. Anyways, um, just try to flame the fucking fuels of war. However, the reason why I went with the Brighton sort of win is I think they got to ride that sort of Europa League high. Yes, they kind of got dominated against Arsenal, but Arsenal are league contenders. Crystal Palace aren't. So
Yeah.
Let's give it your best. Maybe start Joao Pedro for once, you
Yeah,
fucking loser of a manager. I'm starting to get sick and tired of De Serbi, to
yeah.
be completely honest. Maybe it's because he got linked with Real Madrid and that pissed me off even more. Um, but also, I'm getting sick and tired of how he rotates. I think he
Yeah,
rotates the wrong players all the fucking time
yeah.
and tries to act like he's Pep. He's not Pep. He's nowhere close to Pep. Fuck off. So screw you, you Italian prick. So you know
Wow,
what?
no need
I'll
for the
give. I'll
Italian
give.
there.
I'm just kidding.
Racism.
Yes, yes, yes. No, I think the Serbi's actually going to get a win. I think he's going to get a win against Crystal Palace. I said as much. I think he's a genius, and I love the fact that he's Italian. So,
Yeah,
um, not at all backtracking on anything I just said.
fair enough.
I just think Matoma is one of those players who's kind of mishit lately as well,
Yeah,
and I
I don't know what's
think they're
happening with him.
gonna. I think they're just gonna need a game where they get back. I mean, obviously, Hodgson laughed at Pep's face, which was one of the fucking funniest things I've seen in a while. So Palace, yeah, with Elise, love him, love as a
Hmm.
great duo, but I think Palace need to start winning these sort of games, and it's a derby. Fuck it, I'm gonna give it to them. I wouldn't surprise me if Palace edged out a win or a draw either. It's a
Fair
derby;
enough.
anything can
Okay.
happen.
Yeah.
I can, I can say that, but I still think Brighton are gonna win. I think they're gonna win comfortably for some reason, even though I fucking hate this derby. I've just said like
Very coherent thoughts from you here with your mind going
I have no idea what
plenty
I'm saying. I'm
different
tired.
places.
Let's go. Let's go. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
it's
fine.
midnight for both of us. But
It's fine.
next match is Aston Villa, Sheffield United, and we don't really have to talk much about this. Aston Villa at home, they win every game. Sheffield United, they lose every game, regardless of them being away or at home. I have 3-0 for
Yep.
Aston Villa. You have 4-0 for Aston Villa. Could be either or. It's going to be a massive win for Aston Villa in general. The next game is more interesting because I am backing my own boys. Usually it's you backing West Ham and me going against my own team. But this time around, you have Man United winning away from home against West Ham. Haven't you seen Man United's record against the top 9 teams in the league away from home under Ten Hag? I don't know why you've gone with a 2-1 Man United win when I've gone with a 3-1 West Ham win. I think Man United are going to be like having a false sense of security after 0-0 against Liverpool. And West Ham are looking way better now, beating Freiburg and then Wolves. I think this game is there for the taking for West Ham personally. But yeah, why have you gone with Man United win here?
Very impressed with their away performance against Liverpool. I also think Bruno Fernandes being rested is a huge rested. He was suspended, but I think
Yeah,
him being rested in that regards is a huge, huge win for Man United. I think he's been deployed incorrectly all season, and therefore them as a team have been kind of kind of hit by it. But I think that is a huge reason why they'll do well. I think Bruno will have a spectacular game against you guys, sadly. And I'm usually the one who backs West Ham.
yeah.
So
That's it.
I don't know. It just called to me. I was just like,
Yeah.
Bruno, okay.
But the other advantage Man United have is that West Ham have a huge game now on Wednesday in the quarterfinal in the League Cup against Liverpool. And Man United don't have a game because they're already out
Yeah.
of that tournament. So yeah, that is something that could sway this game in Man United's favor. But yeah, I'm just going to back West Ham for once. And usually that doesn't go that well. So hopefully I'm not jinxing this one. But yeah, we'll see. Fulham against Burnley, we both had the same result, 2-0 for Fulham. Burnley are terrible. Fulham have been good lately, and now they beat Everton as well in the Cup, so maybe they'll ride a high from that, even without Jimenez. Luton against Newcastle, we both have Luton scoring against Newcastle, but we also have Newcastle winning. I have 3-1 for Newcastle, you have 2-1 for Newcastle. Quite interesting there. Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth, we both sort of think Bournemouth will eke out a win here. Bournemouth are just in a much better moment than Nottingham Forest. I think like if you had this game like a month and a half ago, you'd expect Forest to win this quite comfortably because they were pretty good at home at that point. But now they sacked their manager as well, which is kind of interesting. They sacked Steve Cooper and replaced them most likely now with Nuno Espirito Santo. So yeah, let's just talk about that for a moment. What do you think that makes? What kind of difference do you think that makes for Nottingham Forest going forward with Espirito Santo coming back into the league?
Yeah, I think they'll play a little bit more coherent attack because I think one of the things with Nuno that I've always liked is that he kind of has a more fun take in terms of getting the best out of attacking players. Completely disregard his time at
Spurs.
Spurs when he had the same talent that fucking my guy has, and it's not gone so well. But yeah, I think Cooper just kind of was a boring manager, if I'm completely honest. And I think Nuno's a bit of that rock and roll, as Klopp once said, that Forest need. I think Cooper was just a bit too safe, and Nuno likes to take risks. And considering the players that he has, Alanga, I think there's, and Morgan Gibbs White and stuff. I think there's room to make some risks and get the best out of these players. I think Gibbs White wasn't playing too well recently. I
Yeah.
thought Alanga's, I mean, I think Alanga is missing his own chances, to be honest, but also been deployed incorrectly and stuff. So I think Nuno will add a little bit more of a Portuguese flair to this team, and I think they need it because they've sort of been coasting with like random wins here, losses there, and all this type of stuff, but they've kind of not amounted to anything and have looked kind of in risk of being relegated. So Nuno will be a bit more fun,
Yeah.
personally.
Let's hope so. They do have some interesting players, I think, for us. They have a lot of players, and they have a lot of like unspoken players, like Mario in defense, especially, who's looking pretty good. And they have Mangala in midfield as well. They have a lot of players that don't really get talked about that much, but they are actually quite good if you look at them more closely. Sangari was really good in the Eredivisie as well. Not always a good factor of success for Premier League. How good do you do in the Eredivisie? But still, I think they have some interesting players. So I think it's going to be fun to see what Nuno Espirito Santo can do, and if he can sort of rehabilitate his what is it? Not what word am I looking for? Reputation is what I'm looking for. Since the Spurs sort of fiasco there. But speaking of Spurs, that is the next game, Spurs against Everton. I have it chalked down as a 2-1 Spurs win. You have it as a 2-2 draw for Everton, and to be honest, I was really close to doing 2-2 myself. I actually have a lot of faith in Everton. I think them conceding 2 goals is kind of, I don't know, this is going to be like interesting because Spurs have been like sort of the attack team, and Everton have been the team that have kept a lot of clean sheets lately. We have it as quite a high scoring game, with Everton scoring some goals as well, which is kind of interesting. Do you know about Doucouré? Is he potentially out injured, or is that just something that I read that might be wrong? Because if he is out, I think for sure Spurs will have a major advantage. And I think 2-1 would be more likely there. But like I said, I was pretty close to going 2-2 in that match, so I don't really begrudge your call there, and you also back your boys with Everton. So yeah, what makes you think Everton can get a point or potentially even 3 points against Spurs in this game?
The Richarlison derby, it's a stadium we've done okay at in recent years and stuff too. So we tend to do well at Spurs away. So I think a part of me is thinking just we're in good form. We've been better away from home as well. Uh, Spurs have kind of been inconsistent. I think we could easily get a result there. Of course, I said this before. I knew for sure that the core is out. Daesh did say after the press conference or during the press conference after the Fulham game that he is likely out for the game, which
Okay.
makes 2-1 seem like much more of a reasonable take because we definitely needed him today. We need him just going forward.
Yeah.
It's very funny how he went from Lampard's forgotten man to probably the first player on Dyche's 11. So yeah, it's a bit of a mishit, but I think it could be fun. I think that Juma might get more minutes in this game too,
Yeah.
and that could be fun because I bet he wants to score against Spurs and go, Santino Morello on them and all this type of stuff as he did after scoring the penalty against Leno. So I think it's just going to be a fun game. Um, I'm really, really don't want to see Richarlison score simply because I know he'll want to celebrate with the Spurs fans, but he won't want to piss off any Everton fans or players or the club because he loves the club. It's so obvious that he does, which is why it's going to sting when he scores a 30-yard bicycle kick against us. So I think it's just going to be a fun game. I think it's even more heated because of the Danjuma and Richarlison stuff too. So
Yeah.
it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, I think it's a fun game. I think it's the pick out of the 3 p.m. kickoff games in the UK, but 4
Yeah.
p.m. kickoff for us here in Scandinavia. And we actually get to see the games as well because they don't have the blackout here in Scandinavia, thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, the final game on the Saturday is the biggest game of the weekend as well. Liverpool against Arsenal. And what's interesting here is that we've gone the completely different way as well. I've gone with a 2-1 Arsenal win. I think they're going to eke out a win here and have like a major statement game. They're here to stay. They're here to be the title contenders, the title favorites. I think they're going to win at Anfield, which is kind of crazy to say, but I'm going with it. You have it going the other way, Liverpool winning at Anfield, which is pretty common, but I think Arsenal have just looked like a better team than Liverpool lately, and I think this game is going to prove it as well. But what do you make of this game in general? You have 3-1 for Liverpool, which is quite decisive, it seems like. Are you that sure about Liverpool winning, or is it more, I don't know, what makes you go with 3-1 in this game?
I just think it's just Anfield at the end of the day. I think 2-1 would have been the more sensible thing to say. I just think it's the Anfield sort of form. I think Liverpool will probably very disappointed with the result against Man United,
Yep.
considering Man United's form. But that being said, I think Liverpool definitely need a big win to cement themselves as real title contenders, and to do that against a team that is very likely going to win it as of current standings and stuff. It would, it's all psychological and all this type of stuff. So, yeah, I think Liverpool will do it. Everything in my heart wants to say Arsenal because I hate Liverpool. Like, I fucking hate Liverpool. I don't think I had anything more to say. I just wanted to say I fucking hate Liverpool. No, but
Fair enough.
to be honest, um,
It's about your
as much as I hate Liverpool,
Are you
that's it. I
lagging?
just want to say no. I was just messing with you. As much as I hate Liverpool, I'll actually say the point. As much as I hate Liverpool, I just think that Salah needs to, if he wants to win the Golden Boot and all this type of stuff, and make sure that they're good by the time he goes to AFCON. This is the game you have to win. It doesn't matter if you sort of win the
It's true.
games against the Fulhams of the world. You have to win the big games too. And at Anfield, where they've kind of been on and off in the big games, it's time to win it. Time to bring all 3 points and really cement themselves. Just make it a four-way race. I don't know. I don't think Spurs are really in this race, as some people try to
No,
suggest
no one.
earlier and stuff like that. It is definitely between City and Liverpool and Arsenal. It's a three-way
No,
tie.
no
So
love for Aston Villa, right there.
fuck off.
Either way, yeah, I think that is going to be a really interesting game. Obviously, Liverpool against Arsenal is usually a fun game as well. So pretty excited about that one. I was pretty excited about Liverpool Man United as well, seeing Liverpool destroy Man United, but that didn't happen. So yeah, we'll see about that. But I think it's a really interesting game in general. And then finally, we have the game between Wolverhampton and Chelsea, and we both backed Chelsea with a 2-1 win. I'm a little bit unsure about this personally. Chelsea have been really up and down. Wolves have been really up and down as well, but they've sort of showed up against the bigger teams. So, and Chelsea have not really shown up against the lesser teams. So, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I feel like Chelsea are just in a decent moment. I think Nkunku being there at least for 30 minutes, I think that's going to be a huge help for them. So, that's usually why, or that's probably why I'm backing Chelsea to win this game. But yeah, we have the same result there, 2-1. Do you have anything else to add on that game, or?
Not really. I think Palmer's in the form of his life.
Yeah.
Mudryk scoring is huge for his sort of in a very decisive moment and stuff, even though it's all Trippier's fault. Um, Sterling is Sterling. He's been pretty decent, and Nicholas Jackson, who's I think been missing the most chances, but also missing the most out of Nkunku, who had created a really cool partnership with during the preseason, and I said together would be really great and a really good
Yeah.
Premier League duo. And I still have belief that that could be what happens, but it's very indicative of the fact that Nicholas Jackson was replaced by Nkunku
Mm.
in the game. So maybe he is still, after all, thinking of having one striker, and that would be a fucking nightmare for me who has Nkunku in my fantasy team.
Yeah, I think Nkunku is going to play quite a lot. Maybe not so much in this game, but after that, I think it's going to be pretty nailed as either the striker or as the number 10 for Chelsea. So, yeah, really excited to see Nkunku in the Premier League for sure. Yeah, that is the predictions. Let's hope for my sake at least, I hope that I can catch up with you, but we'll see. Hopefully Arsenal win as well. I root for Arsenal to win the league because I'm still a huge Declan Rice fan. I know a lot of West Ham fans are soured on him and don't really like him anymore, but for me, it's always going to be a West Ham great, and I'm rooting for him to win the league, basically. If not West Ham, if West Ham can make a miraculous comeback and win the league, but probably not. Next up, we have the fixture ticker, where we look ahead for the next 5 game weeks and look at which teams have the best fixtures. And the team with the best fixtures going forward is actually Luton. They might actually have a double game week in one of these games as well with the Bournemouth game. But Luton, as you can see from the expected goals and expected goals conceded in the last 6, they are bottom at both categories out of the 20 teams. So not really much to go there, but we'll get to one actually in the weekly wildcard drafts pretty soon to talk about there. But for me, the more interesting thing is to talk about here is the team on the opposite side of the spectrum, the team that has the best expected goals conceded, the team we just talked about as well, Arsenal. They have a tough game against Liverpool away now. I don't think this is the right moment to jump on Arsenal players, but Gameweek 19 onwards, they have really good matches, especially after Gameweek 22 as well. They have some really good matches. And my question there is to you, because most people have one defender and Saka at this point. But I think the template is going to move into having triple Arsenal, and I think the discussion is going to be between double Arsenal defense or double Arsenal attack. So where do you lean on this? Would you rather, you have Gabriel and Saka as well, would you rather have Zinchenko on top of that, or would you rather have Ødegaard on top of that, or would you rather have Jesus on top of that, or maybe even Raya on top of that? Like, which players stand out to you as like the third Arsenal option? Or do you think doubling up is more than enough? Having just Gabriel and Saka, that's enough. You don't really need a final third Arsenal player. Like, what do you make of Arsenal tripling up on them, or defense or attack? What do you think is better?
I don't really trust their defense, regardless of what numbers you can shout at me and all this type of stuff, because they've had easy games and conceded in the dumbest ways. So I'm not the biggest fan of their defense. I think their offense is quite interesting, and I think that Jesus being back is huge. I think Jesus is a million times the player that Nketiah wishes he was. So I'm just being really harsh with a lot of players. I just think that Jesus and Martinelli, I think there's a correlation to why Martinelli's played poorly ever since Jesus was out. And I think it's because they benefit from each other's sort of link-up play. And I think Jesus, to me, is the most appealing out of probably anyone. If Trossard gets to play every game, he would have been 100% in my team, because I think he's fantastic. You know, he's ambidextrous, can create chances, and I think he's the most... Personally, I think he's more dangerous than Martinelli myself, but I understand why Martinelli is the one that they're going with. He's the future. You know, they have to sort of get him into the pace that they're hoping he can get to. I mean, Jesus, I had people saying like, "Oh, he's going to be the next Henry." I'm like, shut the fuck up. He can't even. He's not even close. Like, how can you even say that? Oh, Rashford. But anyways, I just don't think Martinelli, there's just something missing to get him to that next level. And I think Arsenal are going to keep trying to get him to that point, and he could easily get there. I mean, for God's sake, he's the correct nationality by being Brazilian. He's got the flair. He's got the flair down. He's got the samba. But he, personally, I think Trossard as of right now, and that's also an experience and age thing. That's why Trossard's also always going to be better, because he's been in this position and been at a worse club and still outperformed the hell out of Martinelli. So that's sort of my take. Ødegaard, I think, has been kind of up and down as well. But of course, I think out of all midfielders, if you were to double up, of course, it'd be Ødegaard. It'd be Saka, Ødegaard, or Saka, Jesus. Yeah. I don't trust their defense enough. I mean, obviously it worked out last week against the Brighton side, who are sort of misfiring lately, who I also said would win 3-1 against Crystal Palace, but I think just their defense is, as Sion Williamson would say, is I can't even say the way he said it. How did he say it?
Lackadaisical? I don't remember.
Yeah, lackadaisical.
Lackadaisical.
So I
Alright.
just think that I think they're sort of like City. They just randomly concede all the time. So I personally don't trust their defense.
Okay. I think Zinchenko's looked really good lately, offensively as well. So I think he's a really good pick.
Yeah, sure.
On top of Gabriel, who I'm just a massive fan of in general. But yeah, for me, it's a bit difficult as well. I think there are some interesting midfielders. It might just come down to Richarlison versus Ødegaard for me in midfield. Maybe I go with Jesus. I'm interested in him. I had like an Arsenal striker for most of last season, and last season was terrible for me, including watching Jesus and then Nketiah missing chance after chance after chance. I don't really miss that either. And I think Jesus was not like one of the least performing players, or like the worst performing players last game. I was watching it with my dad, and he was not impressed by Jesus at all, just shooting from far and wide all the time. He did score eventually, but pretty easy header for him there. But yeah, I think it's interesting with Arsenal. I think tripling up is going to be the way forward with them, but I think there are some good options. Even Raya in goal as well. If you do trust Arsenal's defense, if you do trust Raya to start every game, I think he's going to. But I think there are better ways to choose from Arsenal than going with a goalkeeper. I don't really like choosing goalkeepers from top 6 clubs in general because it just blocks you from making fun moves offensively, I think. But yeah, those are my 2 cents as well, at least. For me, yeah, Zinchenko I think is interesting. Ødegaard is interesting. Jesus is interesting. I'm going to use the next 2 weeks to decide who I want out of those guys before I walk in Gameweek 20 and bring in probably 2 of them or one of them on top of Saka and Gabriel. Yeah, other than that, obviously this is Gameweek 18 and we have blank fixtures with Brentford and Man City. But at this point, who even has Man City players or Brentford players? I guess Julian Alvarez. He's an interesting player you can talk about because maybe Holland is out for Everton and Sheffield United. So if you had Alvarez still, would you sell him now with the blank in mind, or would you just keep him just in case Holland is out and Alvarez can play as a striker against both Everton and Sheffield United at home?
I would consider keeping him. I think he's been unlucky. He should have scored against Crystal Palace. He got the header a little bit wrong. I think it's worth keeping him, especially if you already have him. I think it's worth keeping him. I think unless you can do like a short gap switch to Watkins, then maybe consider that. But if you already have him, I think he's fine keeping for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I would potentially sell him myself. I don't know. It really depends on Holland's fitness, but I don't think like it's something you have to deal with. But I think if Holland is back, especially, probably have to just ship out Alvarez, especially seeing as De Bruyne is going to be back for Gameweek 21, Gameweek 22 at the latest, and that's going to make Alvarez's place in the team so much more unsure, because we saw that last season that Alvarez played mostly when De Bruyne didn't play, but when De Bruyne was back and fit and playing, Alvarez didn't really feature as much as he has been this season. So yeah, I don't think he's like a good long-term hold, but especially if Holland is out, he could be that differential pick and potentially the best captaincy pick in Gameweek 20 as well if Holland misses that game. There are like Chelsea, Luton against Luton, Cole Palmer, Aston Villa, Burnley at home. It's probably Watkins there if Holland is not fit. So maybe Watkins for Gameweek 20 captaincy as well. Some interesting shouts there in general. The other thing also I think that is interesting is Gameweek 21 and the captaincy decision there, because there are some tougher matches there. If you look at Newcastle playing against or Man City playing against Newcastle away, tough fixture for Holland. Arsenal and Crystal Palace at home, so that's probably it. Actually, looking at this, whatever. Disregard what I just said. That is a pretty easy fixture to choose. Saka as captain, I guess. If you like Saka as captain, I don't really know after this season, but I think against Brighton he actually looked pretty good offensively. He looked more like the Saka of last season. So yeah, kind of rambling at this point. So let's move on to the next next topic, and that is the weekly Wildcard drafts, where Saka is actually featured as the number 5 pick. I think is the 5th most important player to have currently in Fantasy Premier League. And I think the most important player to have currently is Ollie Watkins, someone that you don't have yourself, but you're probably looking to bring in, as we'll get to talk about pretty soon. But yeah, what do you make of the team? What do you make of Watkins as the most important player to have? I made that decision basically because Salah is leaving for Afghan, as you can see. in Gameweek 21 when he plays Bournemouth away. He is really good and important to have Salah in Gameweek 19 against Burnley away. He's going to be the best captaincy option in Gameweek 19. But I think Watkins, for the Gameweeks 18 and Gameweek 20, he's pretty much just essential at this point, seeing as he delivers all the time. So yeah, any thoughts about like the rankings of my players and any players that are missing out or included that you don't really like the look of?
Gusto.
Gusto?
Just because I don't trust him as someone who had him forever, and he fucked me because Poch fucking stinks. Okay, I hate Poch, Espanol piece of shit cunt. Spurs, före detta skitstövel, as they say in Swedish, which means former asshole. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Poch, and I don't like how he rotates. So that's the only thing I might have some disregard for, but considering he's second to last, it's okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much why I picked him as 14 as well, because his fixtures
Other
are so
than that,
amazing, his price is so amazing, but it's just, it seems like the Sassy is playing right back mostly for them, but yeah.
Other than that, like the team, proper racism having Bowen over your Marine Man Kudus, but I guess it's AFCON.
Yeah.
But if it's AFCON, why Salah number 2? But I'm only kidding. I think this is a perfectly fine team. Like seeing Pedro Porro up there. Trippier's a little bit shaky, bruv, but considering he's not going to AFCON or the Asian Games, I think it's fine to. It's fine to have him at number 8. I think it's good that you're showing that his value has gone down, and also that they do have some upcoming matches that totally suck. So, yeah, I think this is one of those weekly wildcard drafts that I can't really hate on. So, yeah, the only thing I can hate on is Ollie Watkins, and I'm bringing him back and watching blank. It's going to be beautiful.
He's usually cursed for you, so maybe that's a bad sign if you're bringing him in. But yeah. I think Watkins is a no-brainer at this point, really. The other thing is, which I talked about before that we started the podcast, is the decision to have Son over Richarlison, because we mentioned the Asian Cup and African Cup of Nations. Richarlison does not take part in that, and he's going to play beyond these next 3 fixtures that Son is playing. So I was really struggling between Son, Bowen, and Richarlison, which 2 I would pick out of them. I went with Son for now, because I think he just has a higher ceiling and is more reliable than Richarlison, because Richarlison has been pretty much an FPL troll his whole career, basically. So I just trust Son a bit more, and I think it's pretty easy to swap away from Son and potentially just go straight from Son to De Bruyne when he's back in Game 21-22. So that's why I got with Son or Richarlison, and Bowen also ahead of Richarlison, and Ødegaard as well, who I really thought about, and Zinchenko as well. Like I said, the triple Arsenal thing, I'm going to wait one more week, and I'll make a decision in the weekly wildcard draft for next week. Who I'm going to choose between all those players that we just mentioned for Arsenal. But yeah, that's pretty much the weekly wildcard drafts. I also have Pickford to be the Everton representative. Branthwaite had to drop out, but maybe Branthwaite in for Gusto is just like the more sensible pick, because I usually say with the 4.0 defenders, the most important thing is that they are good longevity-wise, and we know that Branthwaite is good for the whole season. Gusto, probably more like a heat of the moment if he plays sort of player. So maybe Branthwaite is just like the simpler, easier option to have there. So yeah, I guess you can do with that as well. And also, if you go from Son to Richarlison, you can also afford potentially Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's just a matter that he plays Arsenal this week, and Pau Torres, who is the one I would drop out for Trent, plays Sheffield United. So that's pretty much why I've done that decision. But like I said in the weekly wildcard draft video, which you can check out as well, if you want the full video where I talk about every single pick out of these 15 players, what I said there is the fact that this is going to change quite a lot next week when Son and Salah are 1 week closer to AFCON, or an African Cup of Nations, and there are going to be a lot of changes, especially if Haaland is back healthy as well, because he's going to be straight back into the team if he's healthy to play, even in Game Week 19 against Everton. But yeah, that's it for the weekly wildcard drafts. As I said, you can check out the video on this as well. Let's move on to Kevin's current plans, and the plans are the following: selling Isak for Watkins, which I think is kind of a no-brainer, especially if Isak is injured, then yeah, just get rid of him. And Watkins has that fixture against Sheffield United where you would most likely captain him, Because obviously currently you have Son as captain against Everton, but I don't think you want to do that, especially against your own team there. And that also leaves you with the option to bring in another Newcastle player, because you don't have the Newcastle spots open now with Isak, Gordon, and Trippier. But if you sell Isak, you can do Areola to Dubravka, which is something you might have to do if Areola is not fit to play, because you have Flecken, who blanks. Areola plays against Man United, which is not the best fixture. I still think West Ham could potentially keep a clean sheet there. But it just depends if Areola is going to be fit to start there. If he's not fit to start, then Dubravka in after selling Isak would make a lot of sense, because Dubravka is someone that you could potentially set and forget for the rest of the season, but at least for the next 2 game weeks, he would be good to have. But it's just a matter of if you want to sell Areola or Flecken. So anyone watching right now, comment down below, would you sell Flecken or Areola to bring in Dubravka if you had to? But yeah, that's pretty much it for your transfer plans. But I'll let you have it as well for this. What do you think about your team? The Gordon injury as well is also pretty fresh, so I haven't done anything about that. Is that something that concerns you? Obviously, if you bring in Isak, or you switch Isak to Watkins would be the one to replace Gordon. So it sort of sorts itself out, I guess. But yeah, what do you make of the Gordon injury and your plans in general?
I mean, I think with the sort of Gordon injury, I don't mind stashing him for a week, which sucks because it's an easier game. However, they suck away from home normally anyways, so except for the Sheffield United 8-0. I don't mind bringing in Ollie Watkins and benching Gordon and sticking with Darwin Nunez for one more week, even though he has fucking tested the limits of my patience for a long time. That fucking Luis Suarez wannabe prick, and who is a fraction of the player that Suarez was at Liverpool. So, good God, just fuck off. He's just been so bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for a lot of the expletive language I've used throughout the podcast.
Like 8 or 9 F-bombs this podcast, but keep it coming.
Yeah, he's just a piece of shit, though, isn't he? Because he's had the moments, he's got the chances, and he just doesn't tuck them away or doesn't get the assist because someone else screwed it up. Because Liverpool are fucking trolls, and I hate Jurgen Klopp. But that being said, if there's any game to show me the business and save yourself another week, it's against Arsenal, which is such a lie because Arsenal are good. So I am 100% considering, instead of going -4 for Dubravka, I'll just wait a week. I'll just not go with a goalkeeper and get rid of Darwin for one of the other guys. Solanke, for example.
Yeah.
Great option. Callum Wilson. Great option. So that is what I might do. I might just go without a goalkeeper. Areola is probably going to concede. Dubravka probably going to concede anyway. So who gives a shit? Just go 0.
Maybe.
Just get a striker. Just get Callum Wilson, who's going to get 13 points. Cool. Done.
Yeah. And the other thing which is kind of underrated about selling Darwin, which might not be the case for most people, but you have triple up on Liverpool with Tsimikas, Salah, and Darwin. And if you sell Darwin, you have enough to get Trent Alexander-Arnold in defense as well against Burnley next week, which I think could be like a pretty huge positive as well. So that's another positive about selling Darwin, that especially for those of us with triple Liverpool, because Tsimikas, if he keeps his place, he's going to be an amazing pick still going forward. It's just we don't really know when Robertson is back. Tsimikas could make the case to be in the weekly wildcard draft still as well. It just depends how long Robertson's out for. But for now, as long as he's starting, he's a great value pick because he takes the pieces, he's pretty offensive, and he plays for a team that could get assists for him, and he could get clean sheets as well. So yeah, selling Darwin would open up Trent, who's just a better version of Tsimikas as well. So that's another underrated part about selling Darwin, I guess. But for me, I'm just holding out hope for Darwin. That the fact that he plays Burnley, hopefully that can net some results. But I don't know. I'm a bit unsure about him myself. I might sell him personally as well. So that is an interesting discussion going forward. Yeah, those are pretty much your plans. We also have the thing with Gabriel versus Tsimikas in terms of who you start this week. Do you think you're going to go with Tsimikas? How certain are you about this decision? Do you think you said already you don't really trust Arsenal's defense, and you have predicted 3-1 win for Liverpool? So I guess that makes it quite an easy decision, or is it?
Yeah,
pretty much. No fuss, no mess. Yeah, other than that, don't really have to talk too much more about your team. It looks decent. This is like the usually in FPL right now with the template team at least. We have one game week where everyone plays at home, and then the next game week everyone plays away. And this is sort of like the playing away sort of fixture where Chelsea and Newcastle play away, but they're good fixtures. So I think it's a pretty good game or pretty good fixture for those guys in general. Let's move on to Kimo's plans for game week 18. And he does not have Darwin. He has Isak instead, so that makes more sense to sell Isak, I guess. You could do Isak to Solanke. Kimo already has Watkins, which is the main guy to have currently, but I still think Solanke is a great pick. Could also go with someone like we mentioned previously. We said that earlier in the podcast when we talked about Kimo's team. Gabriel Jesus goes straight to Wilson as well. That's another great option. There's Nkunku as well. A lot of different people you could choose from, and especially Isak if he's injured, it makes sense to sell him, I think. The other potential move as well is selling Lamptey, who's going to be out for a while now, and is not going to play when he comes back either way, because that's when Estupiñán is back as well. Just get rid of that dead spot for now, because Kimo has a lot of money in the bank. Sell Lamptey and bring in Trent Alexander-Arnold because he can, because Darwin is not in the team. And just have Trent go all out for Liverpool against Arsenal at home in Anfield, and then have both of them for the Burnley match next week. Personally, I think that's the more interesting option. I really like Solanke. He's potentially going to get the double game week at some point as well. We don't really know when. So I like both of these options. But would you do which one would you do, or would you do both for a -4 hit? I know you have done quite a few hits lately, so maybe I know the answer already. But what do you make of the transfers or potential transfers for Kimo?
I think this is an interesting way of doing it in the sense that if he does Isak to Solanke, gets a genuine stud in Solanke, who's been doing the business and could potentially have a double game week going forward. TAA is the form player, so yeah, I don't hate this move. It feels template and safe, which is unlike Kimo. So why are you being such a fucking coward, huh? Why are you being such a coward? No, I was kidding. It's just I'm trying to go with him into getting Nkunku as well, and then we shall have a good time. But personally, I think if he wants to play it safe, this is the move to do. I think potentially going for a Nkunku could have even higher ceiling than Solanke. I think Solanke is very 1 goal, 2 goals max. He's never hat trick, while someone like Nkunku could get like goal and assist and this and that and that and that. And especially if he ends up getting to take penalties, it seems like Palmer is number 1 and all this type of stuff. But I don't see a world where Nkunku can't take penalties just to get his form up and all this type of stuff too. So I think Nkunku has a lot of sort of pros that a lot of players aren't considering because we know exactly what he's about. So it depends on what he wants. Does he want ceiling or does he want reliability? I think with Trent you get a bit of both, and I think with Solanke you get safety. So I think this is the correct move for him. I think getting rid of Lamptey as well, who has provided him nothing, is sort of his version of Tavares for me. Seems like a good idea. It does make his bench super strong though, which could become a bit of a conundrum. But I think generally speaking, this seems like a no-brainer sort of move.
Yeah. So you take the -4 hit to do both transfers.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. We'll see what Kimo does. He usually does something different, but yeah, we'll see. These are at least our thoughts. I did ask him. He did basically just ask us back like what we thought he would do, and this was just basically my suggestion. So yeah, let's see what he does. Let's move on to the manager of the week, Dom, who has 5.8 million in the bank, quite a lot of money. Also has a pretty good team. Has Watkins already. Has Solanke already as well, so you don't really need to do that transfer either. Also has Isak, so you could also sell Isak. And then there's the thing with Gordon, who might be out injured now. He had to be subbed off against Chelsea. That's another conundrum. At first, I thought this team was just simple. Sell Guehi for Porro, bench Gabriel, start Porro. That's it. But with Gordon's injury, it's kind of more shaky because he's kind of lacking an attacking player because Isak is already out, it seems like. Gordon is potentially out as well. And that leaves him with Guehi or Baldock in because he doesn't have 7 attackers to start in this game. So what do you make of this team? Is this another team that could potentially take a -4 hit, or is it just doing the attacking move and just hoping Gabriel gets an attacking point, I guess? Because there is like the difficulty of having several Liverpool players and several Arsenal players playing against each other. They can't all succeed, I guess, at the same time. So
Yeah, I would personally consider. I would personally consider Pedro Porro and Wilson. Can he do that? Yeah, of course. He has 5.8.
Yeah.
So I think that could be the more fun move, and then bench Simicas or Gabriel, depending on if he wants to go Liverpool heavy or if he wants to have a mixture of everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of has to go Liverpool defense with both Trent and Chimikas. Can't really pick and choose, but I guess Trent could get attacking returns and no defensive returns. So yeah, depends how you want to play that. But yeah, you do 2 transfers: Guehi to Pedro and Pedro Porro, and Isak to Wilson. Seems like.
Yeah.
So you prefer Isak to Wilson over Gordon to Richarlison?
Yeah, simply because we don't know how long Gordon's going to be out for, and I still think Gordon's a good pick. So Isak is a bit of a shittier pick because we don't know how severe the injury is. It's sort of like what I just read about Enzo Fernandez. Apparently, Enzo Fernandez has been playing with the chronic groin injury this entire season. So, and that's why he was in tears after the game, which the camera picked up, and I was just like, why is brother crying? Like, he just won the game, sort of thing. But I guess he's finally not in denial about his own injury. So,
yeah, fair enough. So yeah, you do 2 moves: Guehi to Pedro Porro and Isak to Wilson.
Yeah.
Personally, it's kind of just fresh because of the Gordon injury issues, which makes this team a bit more susceptible to, basically just having rotational players. I think you sort of have to do the defensive move at least. Because, you could play Gabriel as well and just play everyone in the Arsenal-Liverpool game and start Porro over Gordon and have 4 defenders and then 4 midfielders and 2 strikers, or 2 forwards, I guess. But you could also do the -4. Wilson, I think, has good chances of scoring against Luton. He has good chances of scoring the next game week after that as well. And this team has Wildcard in game week 13 as well, so it's pretty fresh, and it is a pretty up-to-date team in terms of having decent players being covered in a lot of different areas that other people aren't covered in. So yeah, I think the 2-week punt on Wilson is a good idea as well. So kind of back it, but I would probably play more conservatively and just do the Guehi Porro transfer and just play Gabriel, I guess, and hope for the best. Maybe he gets a corner from Saka where Gabriel scores, and then Chimikas gets an assist, and Trent gets a goal, and Salah gets a goal, and everyone's happy, I guess. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the podcast. Been a long one. It is 1:12 a.m. for both of us. I almost fell asleep in the middle, as you sent me a message about, which is true. I was kind of tired. And the reason for me being tired as well, not only is it because it's 1 a.m., it's also because I was up last night watching the Minnesota Timberwolves, my favorite basketball team, just destroying Jimmy Butler, the worst player of all time, and the Miami Heat. So happy about that, and I'm happy to go to sleep pretty soon as well. But either way, as always with this podcast, we end it with some final words from Kevin. And you usually end it with the F-bomb, and you've used it 10 times just about this podcast already. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's how you end it as well. But yeah, your final words, Kevin, before you wrap up this episode of the FPL School podcast.
Yeah, man. My final words are fuck cancer.
Yeah, true.